I think the struggle really is for every chiropractor who's a business owner and every chiropractor who's an associate. How do you transform the mindset of an associate into a rock solid performer?
Welcome to the Table Talk podcast, where we get real, meeting with industry professionals and experts in the chiropractic world, talking about the newest and latest, how to scale your practice, the struggles that we all face in practice, and how you can take your practice to the next level. All right, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I'm excited to share a new friend with you guys. Dr. Mark Mandell is a third-generation chiropractor, and he is a partner and the current VP of Mergers and Acquisitions at Curis Functional Health. Dr. Mandell, welcome to the podcast.
Great to be here.
Yeah, awesome.
To connect.
Yeah, we're happy to have you on. I know we had connected a little bit before we started here, and so as always, the goal is always going to be to have you share your journey in the chiropractic space as well as the business world, and hopefully teach us something that someone can take away and get from this interview. So tell me your story. How did you come into the chiropractic space, and what was your journey like?
Well, talking about chiropractic is my favorite subject. So yes, I'm a third generation chiropractor, but I'm actually the sixth one in my family, going back to 1914. My great uncle graduated Palmer, and one of his most famous patients was Thomas Edison. So that's where the famous quote, "The doctor of the future shall give no medicine, but shall teach patients about diet and care of the human frame," was taught to him by my great uncle, Bill Voorhees. So it's great to see that when I walk into a lot of the chiropractors' offices. And then my grandfather was one of those chiropractors who came out of school and went to practice in New Jersey when it wasn't licensed. So he was arrested 13 times for practicing medicine without a license, but the sheriff was his patient. So they'd hang a sign on the door, "If you're here to see Dr. Mandel, go to the city jail," and they'd bring the table, and the patients would line up outside the deputy's office, sign in, and walk into the jail cell and be treated by my grandfather. So that's the kind of family that I kind of grew up in. And being in a chiropractic family, almost everyone had a chiropractic table in their house. So after the big family dinners, our means of entertainment after dinner was, 15 or 20 of us would line around the perimeter of the room and watch one person at a time climb up on the table and be adjusted. And that's how I grew up as a kid. So to me, the choice to become a chiropractor was really just kind of fulfilling. Chiropractic was the life I led. It was, the food I ate, the approach to health, being adjusted, at least once a week was just a daily thing. Before every baseball game and soccer game, I was adjusted. Before taking the SATs, I got adjusted. The morning of my wedding, my dad adjusted me. And that's just something that's ingrained if you grew up in a chiropractic family.
My Christmases and Thanksgivings are very much the same way. I've got two older brothers who are chiropractors, and so every Christmas it's like, hey, all right, who's taking care of the family? And it's, let's just roll through everybody. So that's cool.
Exactly.
So that's cool. So you were telling me before we started, I know that you said you were a national grad, but you're telling me a cool story about your experience while you were here in Chicago. Would you mind sharing that with everybody?
So I chose national because I loved the Chicago Bulls at the time. That was in the heyday of Michael Jordan. And my background was I was a cheerleader in college, and I tried out for the Chicago Bulls to be one of the Incredibles, one of the male performers, and made it. So I was an on-the-court performer. That was my night job. Going to chiropractic school was like my day job. And it was just an incredible experience to be a part of that, the iconic Chicago Bulls and that world of Michael Jordan when he was such an icon. But it also opened up another door. The World Cup in 1994 was played in the United States, and the opening ceremonies in 94 was in Chicago at Soldier Field. So they asked us to be performers. So not only did I step in as a performer, but I also asked the question, hey, is there a medical staff I could volunteer with? I'm really more focused on being a chiropractor than a cheerleader after this. And they said, oh, we don't have a medical staff for the opening ceremonies. And I said, I could probably get a bunch of chiropractors and other docs to come down and volunteer. So they made me the chairman of the medical staff of the World Cup opening ceremonies, and I was only 23 years old and still an intern. Sometimes just being in the right place at the right time, you never know what happens.
Sometimes it's more about connection than it is anything, isn't it? There you go.
Get lucky with a loud voice.
Yeah. So Doc, so you're at National, you're working as an incredible. What was your journey after that? So when you came out of school, what did you do? What was your journey like?
So I first practiced. I went to get my license in the state of Florida at the time, and at that period, you had to intern an extra 3 months in the state of Florida in order to sit for your license. So I went down and practiced in Miami, and I remember my very first patient. I went through the reported findings. I thought I was brilliant. I explained everything, but she was Cuban and spoke Spanish, and I didn't speak much Spanish. So it didn't really get through. And she said, no. So I walked down to the doctor's office and the clinic owner, and he goes, I'm going to show you how to give a report of findings. And he walks back down and he looks at the lady. He goes, El Nervo Pincho, 6 weeks. And she signed. And he goes, that's what you need to know. So I learned to be brief in the process, or be succinct. And sometimes we have so much information about what we know, and you want to share everything, but you have to share it in doses. So as you start communicating the benefits of chiropractic, the importance of the adjustment and keeping an open nervous system, and how it just works beyond just musculoskeletal, it really affects your health, your vitality, your outlook on life, your psychology. I mean, there's so much power in the adjustment. But how do you explain that in a 5 minutes report of findings? One, if you talk from the heart.
Yeah.
And you talk with the person and specifically about their conditions. It's so important to have that, the command and the confidence in what you're communicating. So today, by the way, because I've in kind of fast track, today I help run a business where we have 60 chiropractic clinics across 11 states. We're adding more every month. We've got over 100 clinicians that work with us. And I've interviewed over 500 people on 500 chiropractors for roles. And I really want to know 3 things. Can you explain what chiropractic is? Can you explain what an adjustment is? And 3, of all the chiropractors in town, why should I come see you? And it's amazing how challenged some people are by asking 3 basic questions.
I'm curious. I want to dig in there. Why do you think a two-part question, actually? Why do you think it's so difficult for people to explain that? And the second part is has that changed over the years since you've been in your current position and your current role?
So I think certain schools do a better job in teaching the mechanics of chiropractic, and certain schools do a much better job in teaching both the philosophy, the communication as well. I mean, everybody can understand the mechanics. There's a lot of stuff you have to learn, and it's helpful to frame and to be a better clinician and to get better outcomes, but you still have to be able to communicate. So why are people challenged? Is it worse today than it was? I didn't interview 500 chiropractors, 20 years ago, so I don't have that comparison. But I hung out with a lot of successful chiropractors, so I'm probably skewed in what I was hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm seeing more of, how do you transform an associate into a great chiropractor? You really have to teach them primarily how to communicate and to work on their confidence levels. And the more people that they help, when they start seeing, wow, I'm really transforming somebody's life, not just their back pain, not just their headaches or neck pain, not this muscle spasm, but I'm really impacting their life in general and their health and their wellness, their vitality. When you start seeing that difference, you start growing in the confidence. So sometimes it takes more time for younger docs to accumulate the confidence through just years of experience.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can definitely understand that. Having, 4 associates coming in and out of my practice, I can see what you mean by that. And, that's a pretty small subset, but it's kind of to that point where it's like you want to get in there and tell everybody everything that you know, and it's like you've got to speak to the lowest common denominator at times of like the person who's got a 7th grade education and the person who, is walking in there that's a PhD. You got to be able to speak it all, and simplifying it is something. So going back, so you go out, you work your internship. Did you start a practice? Did you go associate? What did you do?
So I joined my family's practice in New Jersey. So
Okay.
I moved back to New Jersey, worked with my dad. And what was interesting was my dad taught me the system, which I thought was just the Mandel family way of chiropractic. A day 1, day 2 findings, and this is what you do on day 1, this is what you do on day 2, this is how you talk about it, this is the spinal model. And I learned it as the Mandel way. But really later on, when I stepped into run Parker seminars, I learned it was the Parker system, all taught by, created by Jim Parker. And the more I learned about other methods of communication and other coaching systems, you really go back that Jim Parker really was the godfather of how to build a successful practice. And so many of our systems today that we use, the hundreds of different coaches and methods that we use today, many of them, or if not all of them, are founded and based on Jim Parker stuff. So I was very honored to kind of carry on that tradition in that role in heading up the Parker seminar and the postgraduate world at Parker University for a while.
Yeah. I mean, the feedback that I've gotten from Parker seminars just is that it's so alive and it's doing so well. So, it's good to see that happening.
And think about that. Yeah. And think about when somebody's going for continuing education, like, okay, you've got your requirements of, your mandatory things, and sometimes are good, sometimes it's kind of droll. It depends on the speaker, but we really need to go and get re-energized. And there's not always just about I got my CE credits or my mandatory hours. Some of the stuff is you just have to go and be revived by socializing with other chiropractors, by going to your state association programs, your district meetings. Because when you gather as chiropractors, you should be mentoring, supporting, and sharing stories, not just complaining about, the malpractice insurance rate went up, or, the insurance rates for chiropractic are not going up. Don't complain about the challenges. You can work through those, but you really need to create that vibrant energy with each other and be excited and share about why you do what you do. Share the patient stories, share the successes. Talk about what you're learning and seeing in practice, the new techniques, the new equipment, stuff that you can be adding and trying. Like, use that as a way to mastermind with one another. And the most successful chiropractors I see are the ones who actually are fully engaged with their state associations as active members and local, regional, and district members. So it's fabulous. I'm so proud of you as well for being stepping up into a leadership role. It is not easy. So kudos to you, Kendall, for carrying that torch.
I was talking with Baron Hogue a few days ago.
Love that guy.
With the Chiropractic Defense Council, and we were talking about how sometimes we have these debates within chiropractic about, how we should practice and how we should do this, and how when you step into a role like this, you learn so much about what happens in the politics of this profession, and how the politics and the philosophical conversations, like it's almost two different sort of conversations at times. Mm-hmm. And, it's like, we're trying to represent people to be able to keep their licenses and to be able to, work during COVID and those sort of things. And so you have to play the game a little bit sometimes. And so it's funny that you say that, but yeah, last night we have this group that we have in Chicago. It's called Chiropractors on Purpose. And we meet every other month, and we get together at a restaurant and somebody speaks and just talks about what it is that they're learning. But it's cool because, we get people who are just out of school, people who are in school, guys who've been in 10 years, 20 years, 3 years, from the babies to the giants in the profession. And so, but it's a good energy, and those people, they just become your friends.
I love that you do that. If I'm in Chicago, I'd love to, and if I'm there when you have one of the meetings, I'd love to attend.
Yeah, absolutely.
In New Jersey, so most states have two chiropractic associations. It's called the straight and mixer version. All right. Yep. Or the ACA or the ICA version, how you look at it. New Jersey, when I was a chiropractor, had seven state associations. So I was part of a group. I was part of the leadership of the Central Jersey Chiropractic Society, which was kind of a non-denominational chiropractic group. We had straights and narrows for everybody. But we actually reled the merger of all 7 under one group, which formed the ANJC, which became one of the most potent state societies. And why it's so critical for me is my grandfather founded the New Jersey Chiropractic Society originally.
Some history there.
It is. Listen, it's important. Everyone has to step up and kind of participate. Like you can't just go along for the free ride. You have to be an active participant. If we want this profession to flourish, we have to take an active role and not just rely on the handful of very hardworking folks who run the state associations and other groups. So, if I can ask a plea, step up, take and participate. It makes a huge difference.
I could not emphasize that enough. If I had a like button, I'd be hitting it right now. So you went back, you're practicing in the family practice. What was next for you? What was your journey from there?
All right. So I had a lot of commuters into New York City who were patients, and I ended up spending time talking with them about business. And my undergraduate degree was in economics, so I was interested in business economics. I decided I wanted to open up 100 clinics back then. So in order to do so, I said, I don't know how to run a big business. Let me go get my MBA. So I went to New York University, and on the weekends, I got in the executive program, I got my MBA. And when I graduated, I started doing some consulting work, helping, trying to figure out, hey, how do I build this 100 clinic group? What do I need to know? I found a couple groups that had, 30 clinics, 20 clinics, and I started talking to them. And one group said, hey, we're trying to figure out how do we sell products in our, which products we sell in our clinics? Is it orthotics? Is it pillows? Is it, back brace? What do you sell? So I said, I don't know, it's a good question. I know what I sell in my clinic, but hey, I'll do a research project for you. And I jumped in and I called every vendor that I could find that advertised in every magazine at the time and every newspaper, and went to every seminar and just made a whole list of this is the products, this is how much, this is one's how you stock them. I just kind of created this whole thing. But in doing so, I created relationships with a lot of the vendors. So I forged one with Foot Levelers, and eventually I accepted a role to head up their business development and sales, and with the intent to double a company in 3 years. And we did so, which was a Herculean effort in a market that was relatively flat. So that led me to move from New Jersey to Roanoke, Virginia. And after that, I wrote a book about how to build a sales company, and then launched my own medical device company where we sold chiropractic equipment. We imported and designed equipment. And after exiting that, I stepped in to run Parker seminars and moved to Dallas. So that was 2014. So it's been a fun journey. And then later on, I stepped, after leaving Parker, I went on to open up a weight loss franchising company, a supplement manufacturing company where we manufactured supplements for big box retailers, including Walmart. But I always had this dream of 100 clinics. I was like, so how do you really take chiropractic to a bigger level? And I met a couple, Deborah Campbell and Andre Angel. And Deborah's a mental health therapist who, in her therapy practice, she brought a chiropractor in to adjust her clients to calm down their nervous system, not for back pain or headaches or neck pain, but to really just calm down the nervous system. And it worked. And then she brought in a nutritionist to help people eat better, because the gut is really the second brain.
Yep.
Produces most of the serotonin and has an effect on the psychology and the emotions. She saw brilliant effects. So the model was she created a counseling, chiropractic, nutrition center to take care of patients holistically. Her husband, Andre Angel, is a tech billionaire. So he looked at this business. He's already sold 8 companies for over $3 billion and said, hey, if we create 100 clinics, we could create another $1 billion company. And that's when I met him. And it took about 30 seconds of conversation. I was like, I'm in. I'm in for 2 reasons. One, I think we can make a lot of money. We can bring in chiropractors and share the partnerships so everybody can win. But 2, I think if we can create $1 billion corporation, that can have a transformational effect on the value of chiropractic and on chiropractor clinics in the future. So we can leave a great legacy in a way that that's never been done or thought of before. So one, yes, we're creating a functional healthcare paradigm, a model where we're really looking at the mind, body, and spirit, through the biochemistry, through the nutrition, the neuromusculoskeletal balance of chiropractic, and the psychological and emotional effects with counseling, which has never been done before. But create a financial paradigm as well in changing the business model, where instead of being an owner of your own clinic, you come in as a partner, as a shareholder in a company itself. So we're all owning together. So yes, I have a bunch of partners. And I said, instead of owning one clinic, would you rather own a piece of 60 or more as we keep growing? And
Yeah.
it's been a great ride.
It's super cool. I mean, the vision alone to have 100 clinics is mind-boggling for some. I think that running one clinic is hard at times, but when you start scaling it like that, it's something else. And so I'll ask that question. As you went from owning one clinic and getting the education and working in all the things, what are the things that were maybe the struggles, or the things that if someone is thinking about opening practice 2, practice 3, practice 4, that you would go back and tell a younger version of yourself of mistakes that you made or things that you would have done differently, right?
Experience is what you get when you didn't get what you want.
Yes.
So I'll joke and say, hey, I'm an entrepreneur, which I think is a French word meaning unemployed.
Fair.
So the element is, if you're embarking on a journey, are you building a business for income, or are you building are you building a business for wealth? So those are two different things. So if you just want, hey, in the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, I'd like to have more money, you're going to keep pulling money out and putting it into your pocket. But if you're building a business for wealth, you're going to earn extra money, but you're going to reinvest that money, and again and again and again, you're going to keep reinvesting. And that's a path, because you're building something because you want to sell it and create an exit value. So there's so many different things that when you open your chiropractic practice, you're thinking of, hey, how do I build an income stream? You're not thinking, how do I sell this business in 30 years? And there's so many mistakes people make on day one when they go to sell the business. If you don't own the building, oftentimes if you own the building, you get more money for selling the building than you get for selling your practice. If you name your practice, say Mark Mandell Chiropractic, it's not worth as much as Main Street Chiropractic or Chicago Chiropractic. So a generic name. Where'd you locate it? Is it a home office? Try and sell a home office practice where now you have a couple that has to like your house as well and live in it, as well as to buy the practice and can afford both. That's a nightmare of a sale opportunity. Yes, it's very convenient to practice in a home office, but it's not going to sell well. The value of it is going to be different. So there's all these things when the very moment in how you start out and build a business is going to have a massive impact on the valuation of the business, 25 or 30 years later. And you have to think about these things. Or you say, hey, I just want to build a business, build it up in 5 years and sell it, and then do it again, and then do it again. And there's a lot more. If you pick the right business, you pick the right location, you do it right, you build the right management team, and you put it in place, you can create incredible value. So instead of just getting, a typical chiropractor might get 1 extra year's salary when they go to sell the practice, not collections, salary. And sometimes you don't even get that. 1 in 3 offices don't even sell. They just close their doors, lock the doors, and the equipment gets sold off at auction. 1 in 3. So, and the ones that do sell, it's not a big win. But if you can create a business model and, by building more clinics and adding them, you have to create a management team to support that. And you are no longer the business. So most chiropractors operate, they can manage as, by site. If they can, what they see in one clinic, and if they have a second clinic, they split their time between the two because they can still manage by site. Eventually, you have to learn how to manage by systems, and good training and procedures, policies, and you have to start putting those things in place. So if you want to grow, you can only grow as good as your systems can support it.
I learned that very, very early on in practice, and I think that was one of the biggest differentiating factors in my practice. And being able to, and the nice part about it is it affords you some freedom in life, right? To be able to cut out to go to a kid's baseball game or go on vacation. And, so I think that, man, that is some absolute gold for, especially any young chiropractor who's out there listening. So if we transition to to talking more about Curious and what the model looks like. I was looking on your website. You guys do have a bunch of locations all over the place. You know, tell us a little bit about your guys's model, and then maybe, for those that are curious to learn more about it, what the opportunities are there.
Great, thank you. So first off, we're not a franchise. I don't want any money from you. I don't want to take any money from a chiropractor. And if I were to say we merge more often than acquire, it's probably a better description. So Kendall, if you and I had, $1 million practices and we took home the same amount of money and we merged, you be a 50% partner and I'd be a 50% partner. But say we bring in 4 guys together and the practices are all a little different, then how do you figure out who, by revenue? Do you do it by profitability? Well, and then what if you do 100 and some people come in the early year where it's riskier and they stay longer, and others come in at the later when it's less risky. Now we're a bigger, so how do you structure? So we created a partnership structure that allocates based on your contributions of the revenue and the profits and the time and your value as a partner, how you're helping support others, and that's the model that you become a partner based on your merit.
Interesting.
Compensate you similarly to what you earned. It's there's always some contributions that everybody makes to being a partner, and Curious manages the operations of the practice. So we'll underwrite the expenses, which is great. Now you have a safety net. Somebody's writing the checks, but you also have the upside. So it's a good balance where it gives you a much bigger opportunity for a financial exit to value your company. And I go, worst case scenario, if you're able to sell your clinic today and bank the money and still work another 10 years, is that better than waiting 10 years and then trying to sell your practice? Okay. But imagine if you could bank a higher multiple. So instead of, say you're selling your practice for 300,000, imagine if the stock in Curious was worth more. Now there is some risk, related to that, but the odds are it's looking like it's going to be worth a lot more, and you can bank that today instead of having to wait 10 years. Now you're able to bank more money, let it invest over time, and now you're financially free. So that creates a different paradigm of thinking and approach. So
what kind of office are you looking for when you're looking for someone to merge with you guys or be acquired by you guys? What is the type of office that you guys look for?
So I look for, actually, it's 2 things. One is the doctor. Is this somebody who's partner material? They could be they could be a successful person, but is their ego in the way? Or are they a struggling chiropractor? It's just their ego is also in the way in a different way. Are they stuck with the poverty mindset and just can't get out of it? So I look for partners who are good partners. So that's most important. And we take time to really get to know somebody. I don't really care how somebody practices chiropractic, meaning how they address subluxation. I do need to make sure that they're legal, ethical, and moral, and profitable. So that's the covenants. But how you choose to address subluxation and how you choose to communicate chiropractic, as long as within those paradigms, I'm good. We worry about the business operation side, and I want to make sure that we're utilizing the assets of the business. So for most chiropractors, they rent a building or own a building, and they use it 3.5 days a week.
Yep.
What's happening the other 3.5 days a week?
Not a whole lot of anything.
Nothing. So I want to make sure I want to use the space that's already paid for and the equipment and so on and so forth. The other 3, because it's much lower operating costs for the extra days. So the other big paradigm that when we look at which is a good clinic is your growth potential. So can we go into there? How do we add in the other services and provide functional health? Some of it may be virtual, some of it may be on site. But is there a growth opportunity? And that's really, it's taking time to have conversations to understand how they're servicing their patients, how they're communicating, what the opportunities are, and just having very frank conversations before we put anything to paper.
And so what is your guys's, what is your goal? What is your growth? You guys are at 60. You said your goal was 100. Has that changed at all?
Technically my goal is really how to create a billion-dollar corporation. And it's easy to talk about 100 clinics, but if I could do it in 60 clinics, if I could do it in 1 clinic, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So really the goal is the end game. And to do so, the process is, how do we take care of, let's say, 1 million patients?
That's a big goal. It's amazing though. I mean, we here at Elevate, we've tracked the numbers, and we've driven about 300,000 new patients into chiropractors' doors in the last 5 years. And so that's one of those things for us that it's the one that still kind of gives me chills when we look at those numbers. But I mean, it's the same for the same reason. It's service to humanity and service to others.
So we're looking, one of our clinic groups is we acquired some clinics located inside of Walmart stores and made a commitment to open up a few hundred stores inside of Walmart. And you go, how's, chiropractic and Walmart, how does that work? Well, that's America. And Walmart really is today's town centers. 2 million people a year visit each Walmart store. So it's valuable to have the opportunity to communicate and talk about chiropractic to all those people walking in who certainly can benefit and need from it. And we try and create care plans, and whether it's on insurance based, whether it's cash plans, whether it's PI cases that we have to address, but it's a great, easy place to accessible, and to be able to really educate and communicate chiropractic. So that opens up an opportunity where, how do we drive the service of Americans from, the 10% that we currently treat? How do we take it to 20%? How do we take it to 30%? I mean, we really want to see that driving. I know it's going up. There are groups that are working towards pro-chiropractic messaging, and certainly chiropractors are doing better about, reaching out and spreading the gospel about the power of what we do. But we really need to be, it helps if we're there where people are.
And I think it all boils down to messaging, right? And to kind of go back to that conversation that I had with Baron, that I think that we've so splintered as a profession in a lot of ways, and that we've not taken our message and said, hey, we have more alike than we have different, and this is how we push this profession forward to become, more than just a side thing, a complementary health aspect. We can still be unique and special as a profession in what we do, but it can become way more mainstream than it is. And especially I think with things like what you're doing and in addressing, the whole of a person is something that's super meaningful. I think that's super cool. So Doc, as we wrap here, I fed you the question earlier, but it's the question that we always ask everybody at the end of this, because I know that as we go through life and practice, there's always struggles and there's always things. So what is the one thing right now that you haven't figured out that you're working on?
It's such a great question. I think the struggle really is for every chiropractor who's a business owner and every chiropractor who's an associate. How do you transform the mindset of an associate into a rock solid performer? What's the key difference? And I've seen it enough times that there's a switch that turns on where all of a sudden you believe in the power that's in your hands, that you can take care of people, you understand. And how do you do that? What is it? I see it happen. I just don't know what the precipitating event is and how to reproduce it over and over and over, because our profession needs that. Our patients really need that. It can benefit. And I know there's been some amazing coaches who've helped thousands and thousands of chiropractors become better. But if we can solve that paradigm of transitioning from an associate mindset, hey, I'm showing up, getting my paycheck, and going home, to an ownership mentality where I'm going to take care of you and I know I will be able to help you, that makes all the difference in the world of healing.
Well, I will leave it at that. If anyone out there has that answer, make sure that you reach out. So Doc, thank you so much for coming on today. We appreciate your time, and you have a wonderful rest of your day. Okay.
Great. Thank you for all you're doing. My pleasure.
Absolutely. If you enjoyed this episode of Table Talk, a chiropractic podcast, make sure that you subscribe and check out the links below to our free Facebook group with chiropractic marketing secrets, our free resource guides, and the links to all of the guests that we have here on the show and ways to be able to connect with them. Thanks and God bless.